Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're talking about how to avoid rejections from stock agencies. So once you submit your videos and photos to these sites, it'll go through a process of being reviewed. And many times it will be accepted, but there are a lot of times that your footage and your photos can be rejected. And if you've been through this process before, then you know just how frustrating that can be because you put in a lot of time and energy to get to that point. And so when they come back rejected, it just feels like a big waste of time. So I wanted to talk about some common reasons why your footage or photos might get rejected and how we can avoid those mistakes. And then we're also going to talk about how to come up with new ideas for what to shoot, as well as how to put together a shot list that's going to help your portfolio to be diversified and expanded and overall more profitable. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. My name is Beth and I'm a stock contributor. And on this channel, I'm sharing a lot of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way of how to sell my own photos and videos online for a little bit of extra passive income. This video is actually number 3 in a series that we're working on right now that takes you through every single step of the process of being a stock contributor. So if you missed the first 2 videos, be sure to check those out in the description box below. I'll leave links for you, and subscribe so you can follow along and you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Let's say you're starting from scratch and trying to come up with some good ideas for what you can easily shoot. Start by jotting down the easiest ideas that pop into your head. Think about ideas that are easy to access without hiring models or having to set up anything too extreme. And don't be afraid to just jot anything down. Sometimes the most boring and weird ideas can be great sellers. I have a random photo of dead mountain laurel in the mountains that sells quite often. Think of ideas that are unique to you that others might not have as easy access to. Also think about what season you're in and what's happening during that season. Brainstorm any current events that are coming up in the next several months, or just things that are happening in the world around you. Think about any trips or travels that you've done recently that may have some unique footage that others would be interested in. In my case, I'm going to narrow my list down to chickens for now. Our family just got some baby chicks that we're hoping will become egg layers for us, so it's a subject that I'll have easy access to shoot. And I think it'll be a topic that's trending right now, but unique enough that it won't be too oversaturated yet. The next thing I'm going to do is open up Shutterstock.com and show you how to quickly research your ideas a little bit more just to make sure that your topics are going to be worth shooting. So I am going to change this drop down to footage because that's what I'm looking for right now. And you can see that even as I go ahead and type in my idea here, already this drop down box is going to show me what some of the commonly searched for terms are. So this is going to help narrow down my chicken idea and give me even further ideas for what people search for a lot. I'm just going to go with this first one, chicken farm, and see what pops up. And over here, I'm looking at how many pages turn up in the search results. So 280. I like to find topics that are anywhere between 50 and 500 pages in the results. If there's fewer than 50 pages, then there's probably not enough interest in that topic to really get you a lot of sales. And if there's more than 500 pages, then it's just going to be really tough to compete with that many clips. The competition is just too high to even try. So the sweet spot for me is anywhere between 50 and 500 search results. Obviously, these numbers are going to also depend on the quality and variation of your footage. If you're first starting out and you have very little sales, I would recommend looking for results that have a little bit less competition, just until you start getting more frequent sales. So I'm just scrolling through some of this footage just to get an idea of what's already here, what sells well for people. I'm seeing a lot of manufacturing footage, but I'm also seeing a lot of just natural outdoor backyard chicken farming. Which is what I would be targeting. And just doing a quick glance, I think that it's going to be easy for me to put up some footage that's a little bit different than what's already here. Something like this that's more lifestyle, that has maybe some kids in there, some grass and a backyard. This is the only clip that I see that has any kind of person or lifestyle feel to it, which tells me that it is getting downloaded, but there's not a whole lot else out there. So that might be something that I target with mine. Even the process of our family putting on boots and walking out in the grass in the backyard and opening up the box to look and see how many eggs are there and scooping them out. that's a series of shots that I can get that kind of tells that story and has more of a lifestyle feel. So I'm going to jot that down and make sure that that's something that I capture as well. So I want to give you an example of a category that might be way oversaturated. I'm just going to try coffee. So if we just type in coffee, we already have 2,500 pages worth of results. And just by taking a look at some of these shots, look at how good they are. I mean, these are obviously professionals that are shooting this footage, and not that we aren't all professionals, but highly produced is what I mean. So this is not a category that I feel like I would be able to compete in very easily. The quality of footage is just already so good and there's so much out there. I'm gonna look for something a little bit more specific. So if you're really into coffee and you want to pursue that subject, use this drop down and see how you can niche down to make it a little less competitive for yourself. So let's see, let's try coffee machine and see what pops up. Okay, coffee machine. There's only 190 search results for coffee machine. So let's look at the footage and just see, you know, even in this first page right here, yes, some of them have close-ups of the machine, a wide shot of the machine, there's a few of the machine, but a lot of them don't even have the machine in them. That tells me that there might be a demand for coffee machine footage. So if you have a cool coffee machine at your house, it could be worth getting some close-up shots with that. Something to consider if you're into that kind of thing. But that just shows you can really take any topic and start typing it in and narrowing it down and coming up with ideas that you can easily shoot around your house that are accessible and that there are still high demand for. Okay, now that we've come up with our topic and added a few more ideas to our list, we're ready to start thinking about what shots we want to get. And this is where we're going to put our shot list together. And we really don't want to skip this step because this is where you're going to add a lot more value to your portfolio. So for example, let's say that I want to get more footage of my baby chicks outside playing. Instead of just going out and shooting whatever it is they're doing, I want to have a plan in my head, or I want to write this down on a shot list. So I want to make sure that I'm getting a wide shot, a medium shot, a close-up shot, an overhead bird's eye view, a slow motion, and a real-time shot. If I can do this with every shot, I now have 5 more shots for each idea. And there's a couple of reasons why this is really going to help your portfolio to be more profitable. Obviously, it's just going to be a sheer numbers game where you're going to have more clips in your portfolio, but even further than that, it's going to give your portfolio a lot of variety. So this is important because if you think about when a customer is shopping for footage, oftentimes they're trying to put together a story. And the way that they're going to put that story together is by having a variety of angles. So if you can give them all 5 angles to buy, not only have they put together a great story that's cohesive, but you just made 5 times the amount of sales you would have made if you had just had one clip. So when you're thinking through your shots, don't just go out and get whatever you get. Really be methodical about it. Make sure you're getting all those different angles and creative ways to shoot, and that will really maximize the number of shots that you can get. So you can use an Excel sheet. I'll leave you an example below if you guys want to download that, or you can just jot this down in a journal, and then over time, as you practice and done this a lot, it'll just be in your head and you really don't need to write it down. Okay, now you are just about ready to go out and start shooting, but before we do that, let's talk about those common reasons why your footage might get rejected and how to avoid them. Number 1, you want to make sure your shots are not too shaky. It's okay to have handheld shots, but you really don't want too much of that shaky handheld movement. So make sure you're using a monopod, a tripod, or you're setting your camera down or using a handle. You can check out my camera gear video. That was number 1 in this series if you want more details about how to make your footage less shaky. But that's a really common reason why footage is rejected, is just because it's too shaky. Number 2, there's too much grain in your shots. This is especially true if your footage is dark, and if there's any kind of grain or noise showing up in those black or shadowy areas of your footage, it will definitely get rejected. So make sure you're shooting with enough light. Make sure your ISO is not set too high. Depending on your camera, you want to make sure it's at least below 800, if not even less. If you can shoot below 500 ISO, that's even better. But definitely make sure you're not shooting in too low of light and that none of that grain or noise is showing up. Another common reason why your footage might get rejected is because of copyright violations. So anytime you're shooting people that are recognizable or you can see their face, you need to make sure you have a model release attached. This is also true for private property or buildings that are recognizable, and it's also true for logos. This is actually probably even more common, is that you'll have footage that has a logo that's recognizable, and it's just something you need to avoid because you really can't attach a release for that. My daughter went through a phase where she really loved Minnie Mouse, so I had to be really careful that any of her hats or shoes or anything like that weren't showing any Disney logos. I also learned that shoes are really hard to shoot, even if they don't actually have the logo on them. If they just look like a certain type of shoe, like Crocs for example, they'll be rejected even if the logo isn't showing. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're shooting. If you notice any logos or clothing items that look very recognizable as a certain brand, just avoid them. And if you do have any recognizable people or property in your shot, then you need to make sure you have a proper release filled out to submit with your footage. Another common reason for rejections is if you're trying to submit multiple clips that are very similar to each other. So make sure that you are following the guidelines that we talked about before with your shot list and getting a wide variety of angles, and that they are different enough that they're not going to be rejected because they all look the same. Lastly, I want to point out that there are many times when your footage might be rejected for reasons that you disagree with. If this happens, remember that it's not always a computer algorithm that's judging your footage. Many times it is an actual person. So what that means is that you can actually just try again, and hopefully you'll get another person who is a little bit less strict with those rules. It won't always be the case. If you really are violating a technical rule, then your footage just might not be up to par. But sometimes it does come down to personal opinion. So if you feel like your footage is good and you want to try again, I would say submit it again in the next day or the next week and see if another reviewer will allow your footage or your photo to be accepted. All right guys, that about sums up this video. In the next video, we're going to be getting into the details of model releases, when you need to use them and how to use them. So I hope you guys will stick around, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching this video.